We are back again, and it's like we're not even going to skip a beat because it's us. It's what we do. And here we are talking about the Minnesota Vikings' perfect record to nobody's surprise. You know, we talk about it week after week, Jake, and I'm not surprised by this. I had the Minnesota Vikings going 5-12. And in that 5-12 record, I had them winning the first 5 games of the season and then going on a 12-game losing streak. So it's exactly what I predicted, and I'm expecting them to lose 12 straight games now.
I'll be honest. When you started that, I thought you were talking about the Lynx returning to the WNBA Finals is what I thought you were talking about.
It is a big deal. Did you see that the Timberwolves had to reschedule a preseason matchup? So what is that secretly telling the Lynx, that they didn't believe that they'd make it into the the WNBA Finals,
or that they're not going to sweep? Because I think it's game 4 that they had to move. So I think if the Lynx sweep,
it's best of 5.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I know the semifinals are best of 5. I'm pretty sure the finals are still best of 5, which seems weird at this point with how popular the WNBA is at this point. It seems like you could just do a best of 7.
Right. Do you know any Lynx players? Like during the last run of like Maya Moore, Lindsay Whalen, Sylvia Fowles maybe at the end. There are some players. Simone Augustus is in the house.
Rebecca Brunson.
Right. Rebecca Brunson. I could almost name the entire starting lineup on the Minnesota Lynx back in the day. I don't know if I know a single player on the team right now.
So, yes, we could. Well, so Holly and I watched it on Monday. We watched Game 5.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody, and I'm sure everybody knows Nafisa Collier.
Yeah, obviously. I honestly don't know her.
Okay, she's our best player.
What number is she?
24.
24, okay.
She's kind of a lanky. She's kind of a tall, skinny.
I actually can picture her.
Wing
she's
kind of post kind of. Yeah, she averaged like 20 points and 10 rebounds a game. She's a defensive player of the year for the WNBA. So she's kind of our bread and butter. But that was because obviously we tuned in for the first Lynx game all year. We didn't know anybody other than Nafisa Collier, and we were looking up, and we only drafted a couple of the people that were like key contributors. The rest, we recently signed 3 or 4 of the different rotation players and starters just this year. So I think it was kind of, and you could go back and look, but I'm pretty sure it was kind of a surprise that this group melded together to become a championship title contender team, because I don't think it was, it was kind of a thrown together group that they, had. The Collier we drafted in 2019, and one of our other gals we kind of have had for 5 or 6 years. But the rest were all they're all 30, 31, 32-year-old people that we signed for just this year, and they're, they've made it work. Our point guard's an absolute dog. I think it's Courtney Williams is her name. She was just absolutely
number 10.
Yeah, she was on fire, and she was letting the crowd know about it. She was fun to watch.
Yeah, fiery lady on the squad.
Yeah.
Well, we need to address the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is the obvious question. And I know you've been asked about it over and over and over again. And I'm sure you're sick and tired of it. But because you have ownership of this podcast just as much as I do, we need to address it on this podcast so that the public audience knows. Have you or have you not accepted or declined to become the head coach of the New York Football Jets?
Well, I like to keep that confidential. We may have a plan for the offseason, but right now it's just not the right time.
Sure. Okay. Well, they did bring in the interim head coach right now, so he's going to be the interim head coach for the rest of the season. But we all know the ownership likes to discuss things behind closed doors with other head coaches around the league. Of course, Bill Belichick comes to mind. Other coaches around the league come to mind too that are not currently coaching. But we all know that you're one of the top names on their radar, especially with what you've done throughout your high school, middle school football coaching career. So I just wanted to address it. It was clearly, if I didn't ask you, I know that I would have received a lot of flack from the audience saying, like, why didn't you ask him the most obvious question?
Yep.
The question that everybody wants answered. So thank you for addressing that.
If we're being honest, the Jets, what kind of future is that? Rodgers, this is last year. They don't have a backup or any quarterback in waiting. Defense looks pretty decent. Offense, you got a couple good skill guys, but I don't know. It's not the most enticing job in the history of mankind, probably.
Plus, it's not as fancy and as glamorous as the state of New York is. With that comes all the pressure, all the criticism. It's like, I'd rather coach a Tennessee Titans team than the New York Jets. It's like you got the name, you got the place, you got the owner, but with all of that comes all of this extra pressure to deliver right away. And Aaron Rodgers hasn't really been that good of a quarterback all season long.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and who knows? Is this his last year? Will he come back next year? Like you said, the Jets' future does not look very bright right now because who's going to be their quarterback next year? Yeah. But Vikings are 5-0. They're up 17-0 first quarter. Up 17-7 at halftime. End up winning 23-17. Stephon Gilmore picks off Rodgers late in the game. Your biggest takeaway following the Vikings win?
So this was the first time we saw Sam Darnold look a little human. It might be partially because he got that shot to the ribs early. After that, he seemed like he was kind of off. He was missing some throws. I do enjoy it. Sometimes you forget how stupid the internet can be. I listened to watched your other video from earlier this week, and you were basically just saying Sam Darnold was never going to continue at this like insane level of the first 4 games. Like, it was inevitable that he'd have a bad game, kind of thing. It's inevitable that he'd fall off a little bit.
He was leading the NFL in touchdown passes. He had 11 touchdowns, 3 picks. The next guy had 8 touchdowns.
Right. So your point was simply saying, like, he's not going to just continue at this like historic rate for a guy who, as much as we've loved him, like, he still has his past, right? If he was as good as a Mahomes type guy, he would have figured it out with New York or Carolina or something earlier. So he's not that kind of guy. Doesn't mean he can't be great, but he's not like a, oh my gosh, generational elite guy who's going to be difference making every year. So your point was simply saying, hey, he fell off the wagon a little bit. Hey, we still won, but he's not always going to be perfect because that'd be unrealistic expectations. And the amount of comments on your posts that were like, enjoy the win. People were like ripping you.
It's so stupid.
And they were ripping you about things you weren't even like arguing. Like you weren't saying like, oh, this win sucks. Like Sam Darnold's done. You're just saying like, this is maybe a realistic expectation of what the season will look like, where our defense wins the game for us, or effectively wins the game. Sam Darnold does enough. Some games he'll look great. Some games he'll look pretty pedestrian. But can he be good enough with this defense to, win some games? And the answer is going to be yes. So that was your whole point. It's just always bizarre to me what people get all fired up about. It's like, you don't even, I don't know. It's just weird.
So funny because they'll say enjoy the win, but as soon as the Minnesota Vikings start losing or lose a game, oh, we suck. Sam Darnold ain't going to do anything right. What's going on in the Vikings? We're just absolutely horrible. Well, it's like, I'm not downplaying the Minnesota Vikings win, but I'm just explaining to you what is going to happen. And I've been explaining that for the first 4 weeks of the season. I said, it's incredible how Sam Darnold is playing. There's no way that he's going to keep this up. So I gave a warning to Minnesota Vikings fans a couple of weeks ago, like, be prepared for the drop-off. Like, it's not going to continue at this historic pace all season long. And I got crap for that one, too, because it's like, you're a negative Minnesota Viking. No, I'm just telling you what's going to happen next.
Right, yeah. It's like you can be realistic and still be excited and positive. Like,
yeah.
Again, that's just saying statistics or odds, right? You're like, we're not going to go 17-0. Darnold's not going to throw 48 touchdowns and 8 picks. Like,
and I still believe it. At some point, the Minnesota Vikings are going to lose some football games this year. And when they lose some football games this year, what's going to inevitably happen? The national media that's listed the Minnesota Vikings number 1 in their power rankings or number 2 in their power rankings is going to drop them. And then it's going to shift to, well, this is the Sam Darnold that we knew and loved with the Jets and Panthers. And this is the reason why he's bounced from place to place. So it's just whatever.
Yeah. Predictable that way, where the reactions are going to be predictable. Yeah.
Right.
But no, so back to this current game, he did enough. He didn't look great. Still, when we needed a drive, he got that field goal drive. But yeah, I think that, aside from Darnold the first 5 weeks, I think the defense is by far the number one factor as to why we are 5-0. The amount of pressures we are generating, the interceptions, the turnovers we're generating, the sacks we're generating. I haven't looked at the NFL stats recently, but I got to imagine we're close to first, if not still first in sacks. Turnovers wise, we got to be up there towards the top 2. We are just forcing offenses to be uncomfortable and confused every time they're at the line. They just seem maybe put it this way. Is there a more well-coached offense or defense in the league as a combo? There might be a defense that's out being more prepared. There might be an offensive more prepared. But the combo of KOC and Brian Flores, they seem like they have the game plan is perfected. Their personnel, where they're putting
team
guys
they could argue could be better are the Chiefs.
Yeah, potentially, right, especially offensively. But even their offense is not. They've scored less points than the Vikings. They have not looked as good on offense.
Right.
They're sneaking out with 3-point wins, and Mahomes is not having good stats. And granted they have a couple injuries, but so the Vikings have too. So, I just between offense and defense, probably not special teams, but offense and defense.
Our kicker is
legit. Yeah, it just seems like we have some weird punt stuff, and I don't know.
Yeah, it's like multiple times this year the Jalen Naylor whiff against the Packers when Brandon Powell got hurt. Got guys running into your punter, and
just some weird stuff. That's clean that up. But yeah, I don't know. It just seems like Flores has these guys absolutely dialed in. We know what other offenses are going to do, even more than the average defense knows what they're going to do, because obviously everybody watches film and everyone prepares and blah, 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 blah. But the way Flores has these guys playing, I don't know if there's a better unit out there in terms of preparation than KOC's right there with him.
Right, and I would agree with that. But what's so cool about what you just said is that you look at the best defenders in the league, just individually, the Bosas of the world, the Fred Warners of the world, and the Minnesota Vikings have none of them.
Yeah.
It's not like they have this superstar studded defensive front where it's just like, oh, you better watch out for Bosa, or, he's going to wreck your day. You've got a bunch of good players, not great players, but they're good players that can play multiple positions defensively, like a Josh Metellus, like a Van Ginkel, who's had 2 pick sixes already this season. Greener can do multiple things. Harrison Smith, all of these guys defensively can play multiple positions. So even though they're not the best players in the NFL collectively, they've been so good at wrecking opposing NFL quarterbacks. And what always interests me about what the Minnesota Vikings are doing defensively is, why don't other teams mimic what the Vikings do defensively?
Yeah, I'd imagine it's just, one, you got to know it as a coach, right?
Right.
And then you got to know how to install it. That takes knowledge and experience. If you've never encountered that system, you can't. Yes, you can watch it, but you don't know all the rules. You don't know how they teach the rules. You don't know how they, the calls and the checks and all that stuff that make it usable. You might be able to make it up, obviously, but if you're trying to copy it, it's hard to do. And then you need the personnel. There's a reason that we got rid of Danielle Hunter. He's not a drop back into coverage 3-4 linebacker, right? He did it. And he was okay at it because he was just a good athlete and kind of figured it out a little bit. But for Flores, it's not the kind of D end he wanted, or outside linebacker, right? He needed somebody that was a little more agile. The Van Ginkels, the Grenards, even Dallas Turner is that style of build where he's not this elite just straight up pass rusher and that's all he can do. He's more of a twitchy athlete who can step back into coverage if he needs to, that kind of stuff. So I think because I think the difference between the Vikings of, original Brian Flores to now is, again, all those personnel changes that make it more usable, make this defense actually kind of click. Because some defenses you see do some of the same things the Vikings are doing, right? That double mug, at the pressure. They're, what was it? I don't remember which game I was watching. Maybe it was the Chiefs game, I think it was. But they had like 9 guys like on the line, like all across like where the O-line was. And it was like, okay, trying to figure, and then half of them drop back into coverage to different places,
Right.
But just things to confuse the offenses and who's going where and who's blitzing and who, you just don't know those things, But they talked about, again, the film prep, like Van Ginkel said, like, I knew they were going to throw that route because that's Rodgers' blind spot, and he's thrown that multiple times this year out of that exact look. So I gave him a one step in like I was going, and then I ran out of there, And then the Harrison Smith sack too was a film sack. They knew against that look what the offensive line, how they're going to block it, and Harrison Smith just went and got him. So it's like, they are seemingly they are as prepared as anybody in the NFL is right now.
Yeah.
Week to week.
Can't argue that either. Just with the way that they're performing against the Packers got some garbage points at the end of the game and made some runs, but some of that was due to a Sam Darnold turnover at the end of the game that gave the Packers an easy field, and the punt muff, which gave the Packers an easy field to score some points.
Yep.
So that was a big part of the way they got back into that football game. The next matchup is against the Detroit Lions. And one of the reels that I posted to my Facebook, I said something about the Lions and Packers and Bears.
They're 3-1, Tim. They're 3-1.
Exactly. Yeah. You see that? There's more out there. 3-1, not 4-1. What an idiot. Okay.
My bad.
It's just like so funny how I misspeak. I say they're 4-1, not 3-1, and I just get trashed. It's hilarious.
It's such a weird thing. Never in my entire life would I ever. The idea of commenting on random posts like that.
Yeah.
I've never once considered. I've never once watched a video and thought I should comment on this, whether it's good or especially like I'm gonna rip this person that I don't know on this video.
Yeah, Ricardo Rodriguez. One day ago, Lions are 3-1, dumbass.
I've never once considered doing that. At most, like when I mean I know you, so it's different obviously in this case, but I heard you say there for and I'm like, oh, they're 3-1, I think. Like, why don't people react like that?
And there's like 5 or 6 or 7 people, 8 maybe, that just like said the exact same thing.
Yeah, it's just such a weird, people feeling the need to comment on posts is just, especially when it's negative. Obviously, positive makes more sense, but it's like, oh, yeah, I agree, or they want to have a dialogue.
Right.
When people rip just to rip, it's like, why don't you just like think that in your brain and then just move on with your life? Like, that's what most normal people do.
Exactly.
Anyway, I
keep on commenting. It drives the views and drives the viewership. So I guess keep on doing it.
True. I mean, that was based on, it looked like it was one of your more viewed ones that you've had in a while. So
yeah, it's been good.
Yeah.
Anyway. So the Lions is the next matchup. They're coming out of their bye week. The Vikings
5-1 Lions.
3-1 Lions versus the 4-0 Minnesota Vikings. What do you think the Lions are, even though we have the better record, do you think the Lions are better than the Minnesota Vikings right now?
Well, I'll say this about the Lions. When you have a generational quarterback like Matt Stafford and a generational receiver like Calvin Johnson, they are
you can never rule them out, right?
You can't ever rule them out. No matter what Brian Flores' defense is drawing up or scheming.
Yeah, hopefully Matthew Stafford turns his ankle. Not that I'm rooting for an injury, but hopefully he turns his ankle. And then Dan Orlovsky has to step in for the Lions as their backup quarterback.
We've seen him against the Vikings. It's not good. So, if anytime Dan Orlovsky has to take a snap, it's good news for the Vikings. So, maybe, hopefully, I mean, Stafford is getting, he's only 30, so I guess he's...
Got to watch out for Barry Sanders, though, in the backfield.
Yep, you never know with Barry Sanders. But if Jared Allen can generate enough pressure EJ Henderson has been looking good.
Right. What do you think about their head coach, Matt Patricia?
Yeah, I think he's been solid. He's had that kind of the big beard and probably has
He's
not
got the pencil in his ear.
pencil in his ear.
even though his call sheet is laminated.
Yeah, he coached through his era was pretty bad. I don't remember anything about his era. Not that I'm a Lions fan or anything, but just nothing important happened when he was the coach. Now watch, I'm sure they did something important, but someone else fact check that on us. No, actually, they went. Whoa.
Actually, they're better than you think.
They made the playoffs for the first time in 15 years under Matt Patricia. Great. Anyway, so the actual Lions. I mean, it's Goff and Amon-Ra. Obviously, their offense is elite. Gibbs, Montgomery, they've looked good. Who was their loss? I'm blanking.
Let me look it up. They got Aiden Hutchinson defensively.
Correct.
Oh, yeah, that's it. They lost to Tampa Bay.
Oh, yeah, that was kind of a weird one. Yeah. I don't know. Tampa Bay is a weird team. I don't know if they're any good or if they're horrible.
Yeah, it's hard. They made the playoffs last year.
They did. But also, it was the same thing. We were like, are they good? And then they beat the Eagles in the playoffs in the first round. It's like, I don't know. And then they could have won the second game. But anyway, no, this is the team that everyone thought would win the division. They still might win the division. It should be a fun game. We're home, which I like that. Coming off a bye, which I like that.
I still somewhat believe that the Detroit Lions are a better football team than the Minnesota Vikings, even though we're 5-0.
They might be.
And we've got a good resume, too. We beat the Packers on the road. We beat the Niners. We beat the Texans. But if I had to pick between the Lions and the Minnesota Vikings, I'd probably pick the Detroit Lions.
Yeah. I mean, Goff is kind of like a little Darnoldy, right? He has not been great this year. No, I should say Darnoldy like previous Darnoldy. He has not been the elite Goff that he had been kind of last year, where he was airing the ball and throwing for 300-some yards a game and lead the league in passing. Has not been that guy this year. He has had a rough road to start the year. They've gotten the job done. I mean, compared to what he did last year, anyway.
Oh, okay.
You could look up his stat. I don't know. He might still be like top 15 or top 10 in some of those categories, but
sure.
Where last year he was like leading the league in passing.
Yeah, 5 touchdowns, 4 picks isn't great.
No. Yeah. And part of the reason I only know that is because I have him in my Dynasty Fantasy League. And he has been worthless.
71% completion percentage, but 5 touchdowns, 4 picks isn't tearing it up.
No. But again, part of it is they run the ball well still. Again, Montgomery and Gibbs have both been elite. So, no, they're very similar to the Vikings, I think, in terms of quality. They have a quarterback who's kind of up and down. Obviously, Goff's more proven than Darnold. But at the end of the day, it's still Jared Goff. You're not talking about a Mahomes or Lamar. They have skill position guys that are pretty good. Their line is solid. Their defense is frisky, makes some plays happen. So I think it's a 50-50 kind of game at this point. Not formidable at all.
Yeah, great.
Even though technically I suppose it is they're a formidable opponent. But yeah, it's a toss-up as a home game. So should be fun.
They play at Dallas on Sunday. That'll be a good game. Detroit does.
Yep.
That'll say a lot. So Dallas is 3-2. The Lions are 3-1 on the road. We'll see what happens in that football game. But the Minnesota Vikings 5-0. Detroit Lions, what are they? 4-1, 5-1.
I think something like that. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. It doesn't really matter.
Like yeah.
But anything else that you wanted to break down from the Vikings game tape?
From the Vikings,
anything else that we didn't get to?
I don't think so. I think we kind of covered all the main stuff. Hawkinson should be coming back the next, hopefully, maybe the Lions game, probably not, but the one after that. So it'll be nice to get a weapon back. We have basically not thrown to the tight end at all. That's going to help Darnold because he's, a lot of those safety routes will be TJ Hawkinson, and that makes a big difference. So that'll be a huge addition.
Right.
Are you nervous about Aaron Jones? He didn't go on IR.
It sounds like it's a week-to-week injury, so it doesn't sound like it's as concerning as everybody thinks.
Because IR would have been 4 weeks automatic, which again, so that means they think it's less than 4 weeks.
Yeah. Ty Chandler really did not play well against the Jets. I mean, he had the big cough up, which really actually led to the Van Ginkel touchdown, so maybe he did it on purpose.
Yeah. I mean,
but-
they were desperate. They started putting, like, Miles Gaskin got a few carries. And
Yeah.
yeah, they were looking for answers other than Chandler. So we'll see. I mean, it's amazing how valuable Aaron Jones is to this offense.
Right. It seems like if he misses a week, it will just be a 1.
Right. I agree with that.
I think one of the biggest takeaways from this Jets game is that, even though the Minnesota Vikings bye week is early and sometimes you like that mid-season or near the end of the season for like that last push into the playoffs to get that rest before that last push, the bye week couldn't have come at a better time with the Aaron Jones injury, with the offense stuttering a little bit against the Jets. Now you have things to work on. Now you have things to look at. Now you have time to get your running back healthy and even Sam Darnold healthy, who's been nicked up a couple of times. So that's a big benefit for the Vikings right there.
After starting 5-0, it's kind of nice to take a breather and just relax a little bit and just kind of reset. Just like I feel like it's been kind of a sprint to get to this record, and now now the real work begins after this bye week. So
totally, yeah. Well, Jacob, thank you as always for your dedication and love for the game.
Thank you, friend. Wish me luck against our good friend, Mr. Finkelson, tonight.
Yes. Little rivalry, crosstown rivalry.
Little rivalry action, yeah.
Litchfield versus Watertown. Where is it? Where's the game?
At Litchfield, yeah.
At Litchfield, so a big home field advantage.
Big home game. Last home game of the year, yep.
Where was the game 2 years ago when you beat them?
It was at Litchfield, yeah.
At Litchfield, okay.
Finkelson canceled last year because it was a little rainy and he was nervous he was going to lose. So
well, that makes sense.
Yeah,
wants to protect the little pride that he has left. Is Litchfield to Watertown becoming a little bit like the Vikings always playing on the road at Seattle? Does Litchfield ever go on the road against Watertown?
No, we don't. That's my plan. Next year we'll cancel again.
Yeah, the 12th man.
Yeah.
You guys got that 12th man?
Yep. Yeah, at the 8th grade football game, there's about 1,000 people there. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I know we'll all have an excitement waiting for that next pod to drop with you to recap this game.
I suppose, on the bye week, and that's the only football happening as far as we're concerned. So,
yeah. Be a big game. Well, Jacob, thank you as always for your time, your dedication, and love for the game.
Thank you, friend. You too.